Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi nines. I know it's a bit late, it's late for me as well, but I thought I might just give a quick recap on cellular respiration, just in case we missed out on a few points in class today. Now, cellular respiration, as we all know, is a reaction that takes place in our body that helps provide energy to our cells and to the rest of our body. And it's the combination of all our systems working together. So we have our body systems, such as our digestive system, coming together, our circulatory system, and our respiratory system. So each process, each body system we went through in depth, and they all come together in this reaction called cellular respiration. Now, as we know, each reaction needs reactants and a product. So we know that we've got glucose plus oxygen help react in the cell to provide us with CO2, which is carbon dioxide, H2O, which is our water, and the much needed energy for survival. Now, looking at the reactants, we already see two body systems working together. We know that our oxygens come from our alveoli. When we breathe in, the air that we breathe in, or the oxygen in specific, end up in our alveoli, which are located in our lungs. So this comes from our respiratory system. And if we zoom into our lungs, we've got our alveoli, which are shaped like kind of lobes. Yeah, circles. And as we talked about or discussed today, we've got blood capillaries surrounding our alveoli, which is part of our circulatory system. So we've got oxygen coming in, carbon dioxide exiting, and through diffusion, our bloodstream, which is arriving in this location over here, is carrying the CO2. But since there's a lot of concentration of O2 within the alveoli, that CO2 will diffuse into the alveoli to be exhaled as we breathe out, and the oxygen will diffuse into our bloodstream. And so eventually this oxygen over here that's just been diffused in our alveoli will make its way all the way to the cells to form the first reactant in our cellular respiration equation. Now we've got glucose on this side. We derive our glucose from carbohydrates that we eat from the many foods that are available. And through metabolism and our catabolic reactions, the carbohydrates are broken down until they reach our small intestines and become glucose. So glucose is just a breakdown of carbohydrates into much smaller molecules. The reason for this is because once they're broken down, they're small enough to travel through our small intestinal walls and into our bloodstream through the process of diffusion. And if you guys remember, we had our small intestinal walls made up of villi. And we've got our blood capillaries, remember our blood vessels that are small enough for diffusion to take place, lining up against each villi. And the main benefit of having our villi is to increase the surface area so that more molecules can diffuse in to our blood. So let's just assume that this green circles are our glucose molecules. So those glucose molecules, once diffused into the bloodstream, will eventually reach our cells as well. and therefore we've got now both reactants. Once these are present in our cell, so let's just imagine we've got our cell over here with our nucleus. A special organelle called the mitochondria helps take in these oxygens and oxygen molecules and glucose. So now through the circulatory system, the blood, remember our heart pumps blood through the rest of our body from the right ventricle. It'll eventually reach the mitochondria. So here's our oxygen from our respiratory system delivered to our cells through the circulatory system. We've got our glucose derived from the digestive system that are also delivered through the circulatory system. It is in this organelle called the mitochondria that this equation or reaction takes place. Oops. And so when these two come together, we are now able to form CO2, which eventually is exhaled and diffuses back into our lungs and exhaled out of our body. We produce water, and then the main thing we produce is energy. And that's why you've often heard the mitochondria is referred to as the powerhouse of the cell, because in essence, the mitochondria is producing energy, and energy is related to power. Without the mitochondria, we wouldn't be able to survive. Now, this is a question for you guys to just wrap up this online tutorial. In what type of cell or part of the body would you think a lot of mitochondria would be needed? So think about the functions in your body. For example, our arms, the muscles in our arms, or the muscles in our eyes, or even the muscles in our heart. What type of muscle would be needing a lot of mitochondria? In other words, what type of muscles would require a lot of energy to function? Okay, I think that wraps it up. I'll see you guys tomorrow, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.